It begins nearly 4 kilometers beneath the Atlantic Ocean, a place where sunlight has never reached, a place so cold that time itself seems frozen. For more than 100 years, the Titanic has rested here. Millions of people believe its story ended on the night of April 15, 1912. But what if that isn't true? What if the ocean has been hiding something beneath the wreck all along? In recent years, advanced underwater mapping has revealed details that earlier expeditions could never see. Every scan uncovers something new. Every expedition raises another question. Researchers expected to document a decaying ship. Instead, they found mysteries that continue to divide experts. The Titanic lies in 2 enormous sections. Its bow remains remarkably recognizable. Its stern is twisted into a mass of broken steel. Between them stretches an enormous debris field. Thousands of objects cover the seafloor: shoes, suitcases, dishes, machinery, fragments of people's lives. But among these familiar discoveries are objects and patterns that have puzzled investigators for decades. Some pieces appear much farther away than expected. Some damage doesn't seem easy to explain. Some features only became visible after new technology produced detailed 3-dimensional scans. These discoveries have led to one unavoidable question: have we truly understood what happened to the Titanic? Or have we only understood part of the story? Modern robotic vehicles can now explore places that human divers never could. They travel through narrow openings. They map the wreck with astonishing precision. They reveal hidden spaces that remained invisible for generations. Every mission brings breathtaking images. But every image also creates new mysteries. Because the better we see the Titanic, the stranger it becomes. Some researchers believe these discoveries simply reflect the violent forces of the sinking. Others believe they reveal evidence that earlier investigations completely overlooked. And then there are theories that go much further. Claims of hidden cargo, secret compartments, missing evidence, stories buried beneath layers of rust and sediment. Most of these ideas remain unproven. Some have already been disproved, yet the questions refuse to disappear. That is what makes the Titanic different from almost every other shipwreck in history. It is not only a tragedy, it is an investigation that never truly ended. More than 100 years later, the Atlantic Ocean is still giving up new pieces of the puzzle. And every answer seems to create an even bigger mystery. Because before anyone can understand what the Titanic left behind beneath the Atlantic, we first have to understand the final hours before disaster struck. The Titanic left Southampton with more than 2,000 people on board. It was the largest passenger ship ever built. To many, it represented the future. A floating palace designed to cross the Atlantic in comfort and luxury. Its destination was New York. Its passengers included wealthy businessmen, immigrants, crew members, and families hoping for a new life. For the first few days, everything appeared normal. The sea was calm, the weather was clear, the engines ran without interruption. Nothing suggested that history was only days away. But behind the scenes, another story was unfolding. As the Titanic moved west, nearby ships began sending wireless messages. Several warned about large fields of drifting ice. These warnings were real. They came from ships already navigating dangerous waters. The messages reached Titanic's wireless operators throughout the day. Some were delivered to the bridge. Others were delayed because the wireless room was busy sending passengers personal messages to shore. This has led to one of the first great mysteries. Did the officers receive every warning in time? Or were some messages overlooked during the busiest hours of the voyage? Verified records show that multiple iceberg warnings were received on April 14th. Exactly how every message was handled remains a subject of historical debate. As evening approached, the ocean became strangely calm. There were almost no waves. To most passengers, the peaceful sea looked beautiful. To experienced sailors, it created a hidden danger. Without waves breaking against the base of an iceberg, the white ice became much harder to spot in the darkness. The air grew colder. The stars became brighter. Visibility seemed excellent. Yet the ocean itself became deceptive. High above the water, lookouts searched the horizon. They had no binoculars. Contrary to popular belief, binoculars would not necessarily have prevented the disaster, but their absence has remained one of the voyage's most discussed details. Shortly before midnight, the silence ended. A dark shape appeared directly ahead. Iceberg, right ahead. The warning reached the bridge immediately. The order was given to turn. The engines were adjusted, but the distance was too short. The iceberg scraped along the starboard side. From above, the damage looked surprisingly small. Many passengers barely noticed the collision. Some felt only a gentle vibration. Others continued playing cards, reading books, or preparing for bed. No one imagined that steel plates below the waterline had been torn open. Within minutes, seawater flooded multiple compartments. The ship's designer, Thomas Andrews, inspected the damage. His conclusion was devastating. The Titanic could not survive. Too many compartments were flooding. The ship had less than 3 hours. From that moment, every decision mattered. Lifeboats began to uncover. Distress signals were transmitted. Nearby ships received the calls. Some raced toward the Titanic. Others were too far away to arrive in time. Then another mystery entered history. The nearest ship capable of helping did not reach the Titanic before it disappeared beneath the Atlantic. Historians continue to debate the exact reasons, including distance, radio communication, and confusion over distress rockets. As panic slowly spread across the decks, many passengers still refused to believe the ship was sinking. The lights remained on, the band continued playing. Crew members tried to maintain order, but below them, the Atlantic continued rising. Every passing minute made survival less likely. By the time the bow slipped beneath the surface, the fate of the Titanic had already been sealed. Yet what happened after the ship disappeared beneath the ocean would create mysteries that no one could answer for more than 70 years. The Atlantic kept the Titanic hidden for more than 73 years. No one knew its exact location. Thousands of square kilometers of ocean had to be searched. Many believed the wreck would never be found. Some even wondered if it had broken apart at all. Over the decades, dozens of expeditions tried to solve the mystery. They searched with sonar. They studied old navigation records. They calculated currents, weather, and the final distress position. Every attempt ended the same way. Nothing. The ocean refused to give up its secret. Then, in 1985, everything changed. A team, led by Robert Ballard and Jean-Louis Michel, launched another search. Instead of looking directly for the ship, they searched for something much larger, the debris field. Their reasoning was simple. If the Titanic had broken apart while sinking, thousands of objects would be scattered across the seabed. Those objects would be easier to find than the ship itself. It was a gamble, but it worked. Deep below the Atlantic, the cameras captured something impossible to mistake. A massive boiler, then another. Soon after, the outline of the bow emerged from the darkness. For the first time since 1912, human eyes saw the Titanic again. The discovery shocked the world. People expected to find one intact ship resting peacefully on the ocean floor. Instead, they found two enormous sections separated by hundreds of meters. Between them stretched a vast trail of wreckage. The debris field contained thousands of artifacts: furniture, coal, shoes, bottles, china plates, pieces of machinery, personal belongings. Every object told part of someone's final story. But the layout of the wreck raised difficult questions. Why were some heavy objects found so far from the main wreck? Why had certain parts survived remarkably well, while others had been completely destroyed? And what caused the stern to become such a tangled mass of twisted steel? Scientists concluded that the bow descended relatively steadily before striking the seabed. The stern, however, appears to have spun and tumbled violently as it fell, causing catastrophic structural damage before impact. That explained much of the destruction, but not everything. As explorers examined the wreck more closely, they noticed details that earlier generations could never have imagined. Large openings, collapsed decks, unexpected damage, objects lying far outside the main debris trail. Some of these features matched computer models, others did not. Over the years, new expeditions returned with increasingly advanced technology. Each mission produced sharper images. Each mission revealed details hidden in the darkness. Instead of answering every question, the new evidence created fresh debates. Some researchers argued the wreck behaved exactly as physics predicted. Others believed certain discoveries deserved much closer examination. One thing became impossible to ignore. The Titanic was no longer just a shipwreck. It had become one of the world's largest underwater crime scenes. Not because a crime had been proven, but because every piece of evidence remained exactly where history had left it. The ocean had preserved clues that no courtroom would ever examine, and scattered across the seabed were objects that hinted there was still far more to discover. Because among the thousands of artifacts resting beneath the Atlantic, some seemed to tell a story that no one expected. The deeper researchers explored the wreck, the more unusual the ocean floor became. The Titanic was not surrounded by empty water. It was surrounded by evidence. Thousands of objects were scattered across the seabed. Some rested only a few meters from the ship. Others were found hundreds of meters away. Together, they formed one of the largest underwater debris fields ever discovered. Every item told part of the final night. There were shoes with no owners, suitcases that had never been opened, wine bottles still sealed after more than a century, coal from the ship's bunkers, broken dishes, sections of railings, pieces of furniture. Even small personal belongings remained where the current had left them. Each discovery helped historians reconstruct the final moments of the sinking. But some findings were more difficult to explain. The bow looked surprisingly intact. Its massive steel hull had survived the descent better than many expected. The stern told a completely different story. It had been crushed into a chaotic mass of twisted metal. Entire decks had collapsed. Steel beams folded over one another. Rooms were almost impossible to recognize. Computer simulations suggest that as the stern plunged toward the seabed, trapped air escaped violently, while the structure spun and broke apart under immense pressure. The evidence supports much of that explanation. Yet investigators continued to notice details that sparked debate. Certain openings in the hull appeared larger than expected. Some steel plates showed damage caused after the sinking, rather than during the collision. Marine corrosion had also transformed the wreck. Rust-eating bacteria slowly consumed the steel. They created long, fragile formations known as rusticles. These hanging structures looked almost alive. Year after year, they weakened the ship. Scientists now believe the Titanic is slowly disappearing. Every expedition documents new areas that have collapsed. Cabins that once survived are now gone forever. The ocean is rewriting history. One of the most haunting discoveries came from the debris field itself. Pairs of shoes, again and again. Leather survives underwater far longer than human remains. For many researchers, these shoes quietly mark the places where passengers and crew came to rest. No bodies remain after more than a century, but the shoes still tell their story. It is one of the most emotional sights on the ocean floor, not because of what is there, but because of what is missing. Then, there were the objects that raised even more questions. Heavy machinery lying far from expected locations. Sections of the ship that appeared displaced. Artifacts whose final positions continue to be studied through advanced mapping. Most experts believe these patterns were created by the breakup of the ship, underwater currents, and the tremendous impact with the seabed. Even so, not every detail has been explained with complete certainty. This uncertainty has fueled countless theories. Some are based on scientific evidence. Others rely on speculation, with little supporting proof. Separating fact from fiction has become one of the greatest challenges in Titanic research. Because every unusual object found beneath the Atlantic attracts another question, another headline, another mystery. But perhaps the biggest mystery is not what explorers have found, it is what they have never found at all. Some evidence vanished forever. Some artifacts remain buried beneath layers of sediment. And some pieces of the Titanic's story may never be recovered. Those missing pieces have become the foundation of one of history's greatest unanswered investigations. For every artifact recovered from the Titanic, and countless others remain lost forever. More than a century has passed since the disaster, yet the ocean still holds thousands of objects that no human has ever seen again. Some are buried beneath layers of sediment, others are trapped inside collapsing sections of the wreck, and many may have drifted far beyond the main debris field. This is where one of the Titanic's greatest mysteries begins. Not with what was found, but with what was never recovered. When the ship sank, it carried more than 2,200 people and thousands of personal possessions. There were letters waiting to be delivered, family photographs, jewelry, diaries, books, children's toys, money, clothing, and countless items that represented someone's entire life. Many of those belongings disappeared into the Atlantic without leaving a trace. Some have been recovered during expeditions. Others remain exactly where they fell in 1912. Among the most valuable discoveries was the ship's safe. Many believed it would contain priceless treasures or secret documents. When it was finally examined, the results surprised everyone. It contained no hidden fortune, no shocking revelation, only ordinary materials that had survived the wreck. Sometimes the greatest mystery is created by expectations rather than reality. Another unanswered question involves the ship's official records. Many important documents were lost when the Titanic sank. engineering notes, passenger correspondence, crew paperwork, operational records. Without them, historians have had to reconstruct events using survivor testimony, surviving documents, and physical evidence from the wreck. Those sources often agree, but sometimes they do not. Different survivors remembered the same moments in different ways. Some recalled the ship breaking apart before it disappeared. Others insisted it sank in one piece. For decades, historians argued over which account was correct. Then, in 1985, the discovery of the wreck settled the debate. The ship had indeed broken into two major sections during the sinking. The ocean had confirmed what some survivors remembered all along. Yet other questions remain unanswered. Several cargo crates have never been fully identified. Historical records describe valuable shipments aboard the Titanic, including luxury goods, fine artwork, and commercial cargo. Most were ordinary items for businesses and passengers. Claims of hidden treasure, secret government cargo, or mysterious artifacts have never been supported by credible evidence. Still, those stories continue to circulate because mystery often grows where evidence is incomplete. There is another kind of missing evidence that cannot be recovered. The voices of those who never survived. More than 1,500 people lost their lives that night. Many never had the chance to explain what they witnessed during the final minutes. Their memories disappeared with them beneath the Atlantic. What remains are fragments, a diary entry, a final letter, a wireless message, a survivor's testimony. Each piece helps complete the story, but none can tell the whole truth alone. Today, modern technology continues to search the wreck without disturbing it whenever possible. High-resolution scans reveal hidden rooms. Robotic vehicles enter spaces too dangerous for humans. Sometimes they uncover forgotten artifacts. Sometimes they find only darkness. And every unexplored compartment raises the same question: what is still waiting inside? Because even after more than a century, the Titanic continues to guard its final evidence. And the deeper scientists look, the more they realize that some of its greatest secrets may never be recovered. As the years passed, the Titanic changed, not because history changed, but because the ocean never stopped working. When explorers first returned to the wreck, many sections were still recognizable: grand staircases, cabins, hallways, windows. The ship still looked like a place where people had once lived. Today, much of that has disappeared. The Atlantic is slowly erasing the Titanic. Salt water weakens the steel. Powerful currents move debris across the seabed. Tiny sea creatures attach themselves to every surface. Most destructive of all are bacteria that feed on iron. These microorganisms create fragile formations called rusticles. They hang from the wreck like frozen waterfalls, beautiful from a distance, but deadly to the ship. As the bacteria consume the steel, entire sections collapse under their own weight. Every expedition reveals new damage. Rooms that existed only a few years earlier are now gone. Decks have fallen into the darkness. Walls have disappeared. The Titanic is slowly returning to the ocean that claimed it. Modern scientists document every change. They compare photographs taken decades apart. The differences are impossible to ignore. The wreck is disappearing faster than many expected. Some researchers believe that within the next century, much of the ship's recognizable structure may no longer remain. Only scattered steel and debris could survive. This creates an urgent challenge. Every mission may be the last chance to record parts of the Titanic before they vanish forever. Technology has made that possible. High-definition cameras, laser scanners, autonomous underwater vehicles, three-dimensional mapping. These tools preserve details even as the real ship continues to fade. But the wreck is more than metal, it is also a memorial. For this reason, many explorers avoid disturbing the site unless there is a compelling scientific reason. The ocean floor is considered the final resting place of more than 1,500 people. Respect has become as important as discovery. Perhaps the most emotional evidence is also the quietest: pairs of shoes, a pocket watch, a hairbrush, eyeglasses, a child's toy. Objects that once seemed ordinary, now they represent lives interrupted in a single night. No human remains are visible after more than a century. Nature has reclaimed them. But these personal belongings remain as silent witnesses. They remind researchers that every artifact belonged to someone with hopes, plans, and a future that never arrived. This is why the Titanic continues to affect people around the world. It is not only a ship, it is thousands of unfinished stories. Yet even as the wreck disappears, new discoveries continue to emerge. Each expedition uncovers details hidden beneath layers of rust and sediment. Some solve long-standing questions. Others create entirely new ones. Because while the ocean is destroying the Titanic, it is also revealing clues that no one noticed before. And those clues have given new life to theories that refuse to disappear. Some are supported by evidence. Others are built almost entirely on speculation. The challenge is knowing where history ends and imagination begins. The Titanic has been studied for more than a century, yet the debates have never stopped. Every new discovery seems to create another theory. Some are supported by strong evidence. Others survive only because the mystery refuses to fade. To understand what the Titanic truly left behind, we must separate verified facts from speculation. The first theory involves a fire that began before the ship ever left port. Historical records confirm that a coal bunker fire burned inside one of the ship's coal storage areas before the voyage. Coal fires were not uncommon on steamships of that era. The crew worked continuously to control it. Some researchers believe the heat may have weakened part of the hull before the collision. Others argue there is no convincing evidence that the fire significantly affected the ship's ability to survive the iceberg impact. The debate continues, but the existence of the fire itself is a verified historical fact. Another theory focuses on the steel used to build the Titanic. Modern studies have shown that early 20th century steel could become more brittle in freezing temperatures than modern steel. Combined with the force of the collision, this may have contributed to the damage spreading more rapidly. Most experts consider this one factor among several, not the sole cause of the disaster. Then there is the insurance conspiracy. According to this claim, the Titanic was deliberately sunk for financial gain. Some versions even argue that the ship was secretly swapped with its sister ship before the voyage. However, historians have found overwhelming evidence disproving these stories. Construction records, photographs, maintenance documents, and countless design details confirm that the ship resting beneath the Atlantic is the Titanic. No credible evidence supports the ship swap theory. Another persistent rumor involves hidden treasure. Stories describe gold bars, rare diamonds, secret government cargo, even mysterious artifacts hidden deep inside sealed compartments. The truth is far less dramatic. The Titanic carried valuable cargo, including luxury goods, jewelry, mail, and commercial shipments. But no verified expedition has uncovered evidence of secret treasure hidden beneath the wreck. The legends continue, largely because unanswered questions leave room for imagination. Some researchers have also questioned whether the nearby ship that saw distress rockets could have reached the Titanic sooner. Historians continue to examine witness testimony, navigation records, and wireless communications. While mistakes and confusion likely occurred, there is no evidence of a deliberate decision to abandon the passengers. One fact remains clear: the disaster resulted from a tragic chain of circumstances rather than a single cause. Ice warnings, high speed, cold weather, human judgment, ship design. Every factor played a role. The deeper scientists investigate, the clearer one lesson becomes. History is rarely explained by one simple answer. The Titanic did not sink because of a single mistake. It sank because many events unfolded in exactly the wrong order. Yet despite decades of research, there are still places inside the wreck that no one has fully explored. Rooms hidden behind collapsed steel, compartments sealed by debris, areas too fragile for robotic vehicles to enter. And now, with technology more advanced than ever before, researchers are beginning to see the Titanic in ways that were once impossible. What those new images reveal may become the biggest breakthrough since the wreck was first discovered. For decades, researchers explored the Titanic one dive at a time. A camera would capture one section. A robotic vehicle would inspect another. Each expedition added another small piece to the puzzle. But no one had ever seen the entire wreck in complete detail. That changed with modern digital mapping. Using autonomous underwater vehicles equipped with high-resolution cameras, laser imaging, and advanced sonar, researchers captured hundreds of thousands of images of the wreck. Every angle, every deck, every fracture, every piece of debris, those images were combined to create the most detailed three-dimensional model of the Titanic ever produced. For the first time, scientists could examine the ship without being limited to a single camera's view. They could rotate the wreck, measure damage, compare structural failures, study the debris field as one complete scene. It was like freezing time on the ocean floor. The digital model confirmed many long-standing conclusions. It showed how the bow struck the seabed with tremendous force. It revealed how the stern twisted violently as it descended through the water. The debris field connected both sections exactly as investigators had predicted, but the scans also revealed details that had been impossible to study before. Tiny fractures, previously hidden openings, collapsed structures buried beneath layers of wreckage, areas that earlier expeditions had never recorded clearly. Engineers used these scans alongside computer simulations. They recreated the final minutes of the sinking. Their models showed how water spread through damaged compartments, how the ship's weight shifted, how enormous stresses caused the hull to break apart. Each simulation brought historians closer to understanding exactly how the disaster unfolded. Yet the technology also highlighted new mysteries. Some areas remain hidden beneath collapsed steel. Other sections are covered by thick layers of sediment. Certain compartments cannot be reached without risking further damage to the wreck. Scientists have deliberately chosen not to force entry into these fragile spaces. Preserving the site has become more important than satisfying curiosity. The digital model has another purpose. Long after the real Titanic disappears beneath corrosion, its exact shape will survive in digital form. Future generations will still be able to study every visible detail. In many ways, technology has preserved the Titanic against time itself. Researchers now compare scans taken years apart. The differences are striking. Large sections have collapsed. Railings have disappeared. Entire rooms have vanished. The wreck is changing faster than expected. Each expedition may be documenting features that will never be seen again. The race is no longer just to solve the mystery. It is to preserve history before the ocean erases it forever. Even with all this technology, the Titanic still refuses to reveal every answer, because some parts of the wreck remain beyond reach. And somewhere beneath layers of steel, rust, and sediment, there may still be evidence that no camera has ever captured. Which raises one final question. What still lies hidden beneath the Atlantic waiting to be discovered? Even after more than a century, the Titanic has not revealed everything. Large portions of the wreck have never been explored in detail, not because scientists lack the technology, but because the ship itself is disappearing. Every year, more steel collapses. Every year, another section becomes too fragile to enter. Researchers must make difficult choices. Should they explore deeper and risk damaging the wreck? Or should they leave those places untouched forever? For many experts, the answer is clear. The Titanic is not just an archaeological site, it is also a memorial. Any investigation must balance discovery with respect. Some compartments remain completely sealed. Collapsed ceilings block narrow passageways. Twisted steel forms barriers that even the smallest robotic vehicles cannot safely cross. Behind those barriers may be nothing more than broken furniture, or they may contain artifacts that have remained untouched since 1912. No one knows. The ocean keeps its silence. Another mystery lies beneath the sediment itself. Over decades, layers of mud have buried sections of the ship and the surrounding debris field. Objects that were once visible are now hidden. Future storms, currents, or natural shifts could expose new evidence, or bury existing clues forever. This means the Titanic is constantly changing. It is not a frozen moment in history. It is a living archaeological site shaped by nature every single day. Scientists continue to monitor the wreck using advanced imaging. Each expedition updates the digital record. Each scan captures details before they disappear. But time is winning. Many researchers believe the Titanic's recognizable structure will continue to deteriorate over the coming decades. One day, much of the ship may collapse into an unrecognizable field of rust and debris. When that happens, many unanswered questions may disappear with it. There is also the challenge of human activity. Unauthorized visits, artifact recovery in earlier decades, and the natural impact of repeated exploration have all affected parts of the wreck. Today, international agreements and ethical guidelines encourage careful, non-invasive research whenever possible. The focus has shifted from collecting objects to preserving knowledge. Perhaps the greatest mystery is not hidden inside a cabin or beneath a collapsed deck. Perhaps it is hidden in the countless stories that can never be told. The final conversations, the final decisions, the acts of courage, the moments of fear. Most of those vanished into the Atlantic with the people who experienced them. No camera can recover those memories. No expedition can bring them back. What remains are fragments. A watch stopped at the moment disaster struck. A suitcase waiting to be opened. A pair of shoes resting quietly on the seabed. Silent witnesses to one of history's greatest tragedies. The deeper we explore, the more we realize that some mysteries are not meant to be completely solved, because the Titanic is no longer only a ship, It has become a symbol of everything history can preserve, and everything it can permanently hide. Only one final mystery remains. After all the discoveries, after all the evidence, what is the most likely explanation for what the Titanic truly left behind beneath the Atlantic? More than 100 years have passed since the Titanic disappeared beneath the Atlantic. Thousands of books have been written. Hundreds of documentaries have been produced. Countless expeditions have visited the wreck. And yet, the investigation is still not over. When we began this journey, we asked a simple question. What did the Titanic leave behind beneath the Atlantic? The answer is far greater than treasure, far greater than hidden cargo, and far greater than any conspiracy theory. The Titanic left behind evidence. It left behind questions. It left behind one of the most important historical records ever preserved beneath the sea. Modern science has answered many mysteries. We now know the ship broke into two major sections before reaching the ocean floor. We know the iceberg opened multiple sections of the hull below the waterline. We know the stern was torn apart as it plunged into the deep. We know the debris field tells the story of the ship's final moments. Advanced 3D mapping has allowed researchers to reconstruct the disaster with remarkable accuracy. These are no longer guesses. They are conclusions supported by physical evidence. But not every question has an answer. Some compartments remain inaccessible. Some artifacts are buried forever beneath layers of sediment. Some evidence has already disappeared as corrosion slowly destroys the wreck. And some parts of the story vanished with the people who never came home. That is why the Titanic continues to fascinate the world. It exists at the point where history and mystery meet. Every expedition discovers something new. Every discovery reminds us how much has already been lost. Perhaps the greatest lesson is not about the ship itself. It is about human confidence. In 1912, the Titanic represented the peak of engineering. It symbolized progress, luxury, innovation. Many believed technology had conquered nature. The Atlantic proved otherwise. One cold night changed history forever. Yet the wreck has become more than a reminder of tragedy. It has become one of the world's greatest underwater museums, a place where every object tells a story. Every photograph preserves a memory. Every scan protects a piece of history before it disappears forever. One day, the recognizable shape of the Titanic may no longer exist. The rust will continue its work. The steel will continue to collapse. The ocean will eventually reclaim almost everything. But thanks to modern exploration, its story will survive. Not because every mystery has been solved, but because enough evidence remains for future generations to keep asking questions. And perhaps that is the Titanic's greatest legacy. Not the ship, not the wreck, but the reminder that some mysteries are never completely solved. Even after more than a century, the Atlantic still keeps its secrets. And somewhere beneath nearly 4 kilometers of dark, silent water, history is still waiting for its next discovery.